Hey, what's up, mi gente? Welcome to another edition of Hispanicize Hangout. I am Enrique Zapeni.
What's going on, you guys? I'm Jessica Flores, and we have an amazing episode for you guys. We have actor Adam Rodriguez joining us, so make sure you guys keep it tuned here.
Hey, mi gente, welcome to another edition of Hispanicize Hangout. I'm Enrique Zapeni. Jess, we have such a great show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing, my love. You know, every single day, quarantine vibes. But what's amazing is this show. We got to bring on amazing guests like Adam Rodriguez. What's going on? How are you? How's quarantine? How's everything right now?
Oh man, quarantine has been, honestly, I'm gonna miss it when it's over. I've been enjoying myself. This is like, it's a chance for me to be at home with the people that I'm out working so hard for all the time. And, a time to just be home with them, nothing else, pressing for me to be anywhere else, and nobody waiting for me anywhere else. I mean, just really to be able to be home and be focused has been a blessing. I'm actually, I'm going to look back on this time with a lot of fondness. I'm going to miss it. I really will.
And killing it on Penny Dreadful, but we will get to that eventually.
Thank you.
Because I want to start from the beginning, from the root of this all. So your background is Puerto Rican and Cuban. What was it like being, in the 80s in New York City and wanting to be an actor? What's the journey like?
Man, the journey, at the time, it's funny because it wasn't a dream that I always had growing up. I really dreamed of being a professional baseball player my whole life. And so I got to be about 19, 20, and I realized that wasn't going to happen. I had a couple of injuries that had happened and some coaches that really weren't supportive. And I just realized, and look, it's all on me. I didn't have the discipline at the time to bounce back the way that I should have and put the focus in it. I was focused on a lot of other things, hanging out, girlfriends, all of that stuff. So, I still had some growing up to do. So it's all on my back. I don't put that on anybody else, but I didn't have anybody really pushing me along the way to keep pursuing that dream, and I didn't have the discipline to do it myself. So I had to figure out the next move, and I wasn't sure what that was going to be. I thought maybe something in music. I love to write lyrics. I love to write poetry. I thought maybe something, and I really didn't know what. The creative thing kept calling me, but I didn't know what direction that was taking me in. And so I decided to be a stockbroker. And
that makes complete sense.
I totally went, what? I made that decision though, and this is how my brain works. I like to plan, if I can. I'm perfectly comfortable moving on the fly, but if I can make a plan, I like to make a plan. And my plan at that time was, look, I knew I needed money to survive. I knew I was working 2 or 3 different jobs at the time. I was a bellman. I was working construction. I was doing some other odd jobs here and there. And I just knew that in order to survive, I was going to have to make money to be able to take care of myself. And if I was going to pursue that dream, my mother made it very clear, like, you're not going to live here. You're going to have to go and do your own thing. If you're not in school, my options were military, school, full-time college, or hit the road. And so, so I decided I would, work on the hit the road plan as soon as possible. And, I knew I needed to make money to do that. And so I always had an interest in the stock market, always had an interest in finance and how money worked. And I was always a hustler my whole life as a kid. I mean, if I wanted something, I had no problem figuring out some sort of, hustle that I was going to get it. I was going to work my ass off to get what I wanted. And I had a habit of, achieving that, whether it was a paper route or it was collecting bottles to make money to buy video games or, I mean, you name it. I did it as sold greeting cards door to door. I mean, anything, and it started at a really young age. Shoveled cars out of the snow in the winter. Just so many, anything that I saw an opportunity to be able to capitalize on, I went after it. And so in that moment at 19, I was like, look, I'm not going to college. I don't have a college education. What are my options to really make a substantial amount of money in terms of being able to support myself and make a living? I was making like $8 an hour as a bellman. And, my construction job paid well, but that was on and off. And so, I said, man, you know, I had been in the business clubs in high school. Like I said, I had always had an interest in the stock market, and I went and interviewed at a brokerage house. You know, it wasn't a very reputable place. It wasn't like, you know, wasn't the bottom of the barrel, but it wasn't really like, wasn't any name you ever heard of. And so, you know, I put on my best suit. I met the guy. I mean, they were, you know, they were legit enough. They had a human resources department, and they had several offices. And so, you know, I had to really go on an official interview at 19 and go in and, you know, and put on my best stuff. And I went in, I got hired to be a trainee, and you had to go ahead and you had to foot the bill for your licensing fees and your test fees and everything. You know, it was probably about $1,500 or $1,800, somewhere close to $2,000 that I had to come up with at this time. This is 1994. And so, you know, I had to get a few other hustles going at the time and figure out how I was going to come up with that cash. And I did. And I started working at the place, and I was about a week away from getting my licenses so that I could officially start working. You know, they had us doing cold calling and some other stuff where you're soliciting clients. And I was about a week away from getting my license, and there was a motivational speaker that they had come to the office, and probably about 40 people in the office at the time, and they're all watching this guy. The guy's name was Dan Levy. He wrote a book called How to Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive, I think is the name of the book. Nice. And he's there, he's got a sledgehammer and a cinder block, and he's doing this whole talk, and, you know, putting on a show. And, you know, I have this tendency to watch the audience, or watch the crowd rather than watch the spectacle usually. And this guy's putting on his show, and I'm looking at all the guys, and they were all guys. There weren't any women that I recall at that office. I'm looking at these guys, and I'm just seeing none of them looked happy. Nobody. They are, in fact, everybody was out of shape, looked a lot older than however old they were. They just looked miserable, you know. This was still at a time, this was before the tech bubble happened in the late 90s. So, you know, the stock market was pretty, it was not an exciting place to be necessarily. You know, it was still kind of old school, kind of flat. A lot of the tech and the innovation that's come to it now didn't exist. And so, you know, these guys were beat up and tired. And I had a moment, I had this epiphany where I was like, this is not where I want to find myself in 20 years. I was like, and I could get stuck here. You know, my plan was to work there, build a nest egg, and, you know, over 3-4 years, and get out by the time I was 23, 24, and then go pursue acting. And I had this moment where I realized I could get stuck here.
Yeah.
This could end up being my life, you know, because you start making money. Who knows what happens, you know? I was in a serious relationship at the time. Maybe I had kids. Like, who knows what was going to happen? And then that's the life that I'm living. And, you know, and I just knew nothing wrong with that life. It's just not what I wanted. And so at that moment, I realized, no, you know, I need to go after this dream that I have of acting. And that was really what kickstarted the pursuit of my career. You know, in terms of realizing that I wanted to be an actor, I think that you asked me about growing up in New York in the 80s and 90s. And, you know, unfortunately, there weren't a lot of Latino actors that you could look towards and, you know, and go like, oh yeah, I could make a living doing that. I could be an actor. It wasn't even a thought really. You know, I mean, you had Raul Julia, you had Jimmy Smits, you had Isai Morales, you know, you had, you know, you really had a handful of, especially in terms of men, you know, I think that our women, you know, because of the beauty and all of the wonderful qualities that we tend to possess, you know, as part of the culture, our women have always been embraced and accepted in a different way. And, you know, and I don't feel like Latin men have always gotten, you know, very much opportunity, let's just say, you know, to participate in these stories being told. And it's a shame, you know, it's a shame. I just watched this Ryan Murphy series, Hollywood, and, you know, and it's excellent. You know, it's a little dream, you know, the whole thing is like a little, it's like, what if, you know, what if it could all be like this? You know, everybody was loving and accepting, and people had the guts to do the things that are right and that feel good. But, you know, I got to the end of the series, and it dawned on me, I didn't see one Latin male or even female in the whole thing. You know,
Yeah.
there was one moment of mention at the Oscar ceremony at the end. One of the actors that was nominated, I think, was a guy named Thomas Gomez or something. And but
Gomez. There we go.
you never saw him. You never saw him. You know, and so, you know, look, I don't want to get bogged down on what is, and it's unfortunate that that is what is, and we need to change that. And I know part of, you know, my motivation is to be a face and an image and a, you know, and a person that just does whatever they can do to help continue to break those boundaries and, you know, to help bring things along, just moving forward, wherever that ends up being. No expectation.
You are.
Absolutely.
You are
Absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah, you're doing that. Oh yeah, continue.
No, I appreciate it. And I was just going to say that, like, you know, just enough so that some kid that's growing up that never thought about being an actor or anything like that could look and go like, you know, yeah, that is a possibility. There, I am represented there. You know, and it's so funny because that's what so much of that series was about, right? It was like, you know, the Meg character, she, you know, she was there so that some young Black girl could look up and see her and go, I can be that one day, you know, and that's what we need to do, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's crazy is, like, you had mentioned this. I mean, when you were younger, your mom said, look, it's either education, military school, or SAS. Like, you're not living at my home. I have almost a similar story. I think a lot of Latinos can relate that sometimes, you know, our parents want the best for us, and they think that maybe this type of industry, media, acting, singing, performance arts isn't something stable. It isn't a job. It's a hobby. And I think it even starts with that conversation. I think from that moment where maybe Latinos don't feel like that they can get into the industry, it starts from when we're children and we're being told, even from people that love us and we respect their opinion, they're like, no, like, maybe don't go that route. If not, get out the house and stuff. So interestingly enough, you still conquered all that. I mean, you have been a leading actor in television shows like CSI Miami, Criminal Minds, and popular movies like Magic Mike. For 20 years, you've been in this business. So you, somebody who's been a veteran, you've been in this industry for so long and has had the longevity and success. What is your advice for all those young Latinx actors who are trying to make it, that are like, how do I even start? How do I scrape the surface? Do I get an agent? Like, how do you even penetrate this industry?
You know, I think, and it's funny that you mentioned, you know, we talked about parents and those initial obstacles, right? Like, the truth of the matter is that they are necessary. Because if you're not faced with any of those obstacles, like, you're not going to toughen up. And sometimes I think, in a way, you know, we want our families to support us. We want our families to be really behind us all the way. And I got to say, I'm grateful that my mother was not very supportive at the beginning. My father was. My father's more of the dreamer. He's the guy that's like, yeah, go for it. Like, you know, and so I was lucky to have that kind of support from him. But my mother was the opposite. You know, my mother was, I mean, honestly, if my mother could have had her wish, I'd be a priest, you know?
Okay, yes. My mom tried making me into a monja too. Don't worry about it.
So, you know, I think that those obstacles are critical because you're going to be faced with them out in the world. So no matter what, you need to start developing some conviction, some thick skin. You have to learn to believe in yourself if you're really going to have a chance to make it. And I think that sometimes the people that love us the most, they're worried for us the most, they're concerned for us the most, and their instinct is to protect. And sometimes that instinct to protect is demonstrated as, you know, conflict or as somebody who is trying to stand in your way. You know, it's the equivalent of your parents jumping in front of a bullet for you. You know, right. It's what they're trying to do. Yeah. You know, and I don't think I could have understood this before I was a parent myself. You know, you really understand the moment you become a parent that, my God, there's nothing I wouldn't do for you. You know, so even if that means you're gonna hate me and I'm gonna stand in your way for something that you think is right, but if I don't think it's right, I'm willing to have you hate me if that's what I think is the right thing. And you know, and that's how they're expressing their love. And so, you know, it took me a lot of years to realize that. I mean, I resented the fact that I didn't have that kind of support, but I look back on it now and I go, no, you know what, that was the beginning of me developing the the conviction and the commitment to what I wanted to do that you need to succeed. You know, you've got to believe and be convinced that nothing is going to stop you. And sometimes having someone you love be that first obstacle is usually a good thing, you know, because for whatever reason, when we get out in the world, other people's opinions start mattering more to us, which is crazy, right? But, you know, somebody else telling me, no, you can't do it, might have hurt or stopped me or gotten, I mean, it wouldn't have stopped me, but it would have stopped some people, you know, rather than someone you love and trust. So my advice, this goes back to your question. I mean, my advice is, if this is what you want to do, you have to believe in yourself is the beginning of it. You know, the rest of the steps, they're going to reveal themselves along the way, you know, but if you are truly, and you have to be truly committed, like in a way that I didn't understand when I wanted to play baseball. I was not truly committed to succeeding in that endeavor. If I had been, I would have succeeded in it, because that's just what I believe. I believe that anything I'm going to put my mind and my focus on, I am capable of achieving that. And I don't care what obstacles you put in front of me, I'm going to achieve that. And I wasn't at that point in my life in that time, but now I was, and now I found this dream, and here we go. And I go off after it. I would say that you've got to believe in yourself. And then I would say my other piece of advice to young Latino, young Latinos aspiring to be in this business, whether it's as a writer, a director, an actor, or which we need as many of us as we can get as executives, as people making the decisions on who to hire and what stories to tell, you know, because if we don't have a hand in that, ultimately it's not just about being the creatives, you know, it's about being the person who writes the check that allows those creatives to then go and and materialize this dream that they might have cooked up in their head or on a page. And and that's every bit as important. And we don't have that now. And I think it's also a big part of why we don't see as many of our stories. Our representation in films and television, we are grossly underrepresented for what we represent to the population of this country. And in relation to that, it's completely out of whack.
You're absolutely right.
It's unfortunate, but again, I don't believe in pointing the fingers. I don't believe in saying, like, you're not giving us these opportunities. You're not. Look, they're not as much, and that is changing slowly. But those changes, they're going to benefit us. So they have to come from our hard work, and they have to come from us, putting in the time and the effort to get in the positions to be able to make those changes. And sorry to go on like this, but I'm saying, like, so much of that is dependent upon us showing up to support those things when they do happen.
Yes.
Right. That's exactly. I was just saying, like, supporting the community, buying the tickets, watching the shows.
Got to demand to see yourselves. Got to demand to be represented. Because, look, and to tie it into Penny Dreadful, it's exactly what happens, right? Like, they want to build this freeway in the middle of the city. Who are they going to displace? Who are they going to move out of the way? It's the path of least resistance always, right? It's the path, it's just human nature. It's life. It's nature, period. It's not even human nature. It's nature. Yes. It is the path of least resistance. That tree that's going to grow, or that flower that's going to grow, it's going to grow in the crack in the ground, because that's where it can find the light. It's the path of least resistance. And, sometimes we got to make that crack, though. You got to pound and pound and pound until you crack something open and allow the light in. And we don't do that, unfortunately, for ourselves. We don't show up in the way that we need to represent properly.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. 100%. And before we get into Penny Dreadful, because I'm obsessed with the show, I love it. And it's amazing. But it seems like if there is a cool show that is a hit show that has a Latino character in it, you're in it. Okay, it's like that. It's the truth. It's the truth. So out of that, like, I just want to know, before we jump again into Penny Dreadful, is there a particular character that you played that you've loved the most? And I'm going to do a double whammy on this one. And has there been an opportunity where you read for a character and you really wanted it and you didn't get it?
That's a good question, boo.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So is there a character?
Your favorite?
My favorite. That's what I thought.
And then the one that you didn't get.
The one that got away.
The one that got away. Exactly.
Let me go to the one that got away first. I honestly can't remember anything that I really wanted that badly and had it slip away and then saw it again. Like, you know, there probably were things that came along that, you know, that somebody got and I just forgot about it. But I'm trying to think of a good one. If I can remember like a really good one, man.
He's like, I'm just that good, y'all. Like, I get whatever I want.
As you are.
I'll tell you what I'm good at. What I'm good at is letting go. Like, I don't remember this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like, nice.
Like, once it's done, and it's another thing. Like, when you're an actor, you know, yes, you got to be passionate about the thing.
Yeah.
But you also have to be able to let it go. You have to be able to just understand that, like, if it didn't happen, it really, I know it's cliche, but it just wasn't meant to be for you. That's it, you know, and you've got to move past it. So I have a hard time remembering that because I really have gotten to that point. I would say there's a movie, this war movie, it's called We Were Soldiers Once and Young. But again, like it was on TV the other day and I look at the parts and I gotta be honest, I haven't had the opportunity to be in anything that when I've seen it, I was like, damn, I really wish I would have done that, you know?
Nice.
I really, you know, that you may think you want it and then you see how it maybe turns out and you're just like, yeah, it wasn't what I thought in my head.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy because you, like us normal people, normal meaning non-actors, okay, not in your specific industry, like we'll be watching TV and we don't even think about the fact that you guys got a script. You guys have to imagine it in your mind. Is this going to be like a flop? Is the production going to be good? Like I'm just now like piecing it together. Honestly, that is crazy to me. Like, what if you sign up for something and it turns out coming together in a whack way and it has nothing to do with you or your performance? Like, that's crazy to me. Honestly, I don't even think about stuff.
Been there plenty of times. Yeah, it happened. You know,
like you watch it back and you're like, what is happening? And it's like.
There's definitely been stuff that you're like, oh my God, I hope nobody ever sees this, you know. But we live in a world now where it's all out there, you know, it's all out there. And the way that I deal with that is I'm just like, if it's not in my world, then even if it's out there, I don't care. It's like, it happened already. I'm over it,
amazing.
Moving on, you know. But what I was going to say to that point too is that it's funny because, and I don't know if this is just, you know, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but there haven't been, quite honestly, that many roles in all of my years, actually, at least that I've had an opportunity to go out for. You know, there haven't been that many that were great roles. And again, that sort of goes to what I was talking about before in the sense that, like, there just haven't been that many great roles written with us in mind. And so, you know, I think that's part of the reason why it's easy to let some of them go, because they're all, you know, a lot of them have just been things that, I don't know, that didn't have much meaning behind them for me, you know, and the ones that did were the ones that I managed to get and that I, you know, for me, that I felt like really committed to, and as some felt like there was something creative I could add to that would be of value. You know, so I don't know. Maybe it's I'm lucky. Maybe it's that I just put that much more effort into the things that mattered to me, and so I don't have much regrets about the things that didn't. You know, I'm sure if somebody handed me a list from the past 20 years, I could probably point to, you know, at least 4 or 5 things that I would have been like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Damn, that would have been good. You know, but, you know, as time goes on, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, you know, I mean, I remember there was this movie, it was like this movie called I Know What You Did Last Summer, I think.
Yes,
Yes.
I remember that
When
one.
I first got to LA, you know, and again, I was still learning to develop this level of discipline. I still didn't quite have it yet. I remember I got a script for that. And yeah, I'll tell this story. I mean, I look like an idiot in the story, but it's a good lesson. I got a script for that. This agent sent me a script for this, and it's like, look, you have a meeting tomorrow, whatever it was, with the director and the casting director. And I think it was the sequel to that movie. I think it was like, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
With
Oh
Brett-
my gosh.
Yeah.
My stupid ass decided to go out the night before. Now I'm 22, maybe, you know, and I went out the night before, didn't read the script, went out all night, woke up the next day, had to run to go to this meeting. And I get to the meeting. We had a great meeting. We're just chatting away. And then we get to the part of the meeting where they're like, so what, you know, what did you think of the script? Did you, and I had to, and this is funny because this is exactly what happened. I said, I'm just an honest person. I was like, look, I got to be honest. I didn't read the script. I didn't have a chance to read the script. And, you know, and the casting director, I'll never forget, is at Sony Studios. She looks at me and she goes, honey, this is where you're supposed to lie. You know, and I remember, and I just knew in that moment that the meeting was over. You know, it's me, her, the director. The director's this guy named Danny Cannon, who I ended up working with later because he directed the pilot for CSI Miami 5 years later.
Oh my gosh.
And so I ended up meeting him down the line, and I was like, yeah. By the time I had met him, I had really wisened up. But this was one of those learning. This was a learning moment for me. You know,
Definitely
I realized
in
that moment, I'm like, well, I guess the meeting's over. And I just stood up. I was like, I guess we're done then, you know, and it was nice meeting you guys. And I look back on that and I go, man, it's not so much that the part necessarily would have meant anything to me, but I do look at it and I go, maybe it would have, you know, maybe that would have been a springboard to something else. Maybe
I don't know about that. The first one, I mean, the first one maybe, but the second one, don't worry, you don't miss anything.
Yeah, you're good. Learning experience.
I have believe me, I have not lost a wink of sleep about it. But
I'm dead.
I was trying to think back of anything that I could remember and go like, maybe that would have jumped into something. But, you know, the reality is like everything is, you know, it happens the way it does, and I'm good with all of it. But, you know, that is the thing. I mean, we need to see ourselves. We need to have more opportunities, and I'm hoping that changes. So my advice, because I still think I was kind of answering that question that you had asked in terms of like what to offer people. I want to leave them with something, and you know, and I think that yes, think about being an executive. Think about being a decision maker, somebody who can actually, you know, grow a career and get to the point where you're running a studio or you're running a network. Or, you know, or you are in a position of power to go ahead and actually make sure that everybody's story is included proportionately, you know, to what the audience is. And, you know, in terms of being an actor, director, or writer, nowadays with iPhones and all the kinds of, you know, equipment you can purchase for so little money nowadays, if you really want to get creative, there's nothing stopping you from making your own stories. I mean, I was doing this in high school. I would make little movies and, you know, write short movies or whatever it was and just do it. And I didn't have the kind of access that people have to stuff now, you know?
Yeah.
So if you want to do it, get going. You could edit it on your computer. You could get it together with your friend. Like there's nothing that should be stopping you. You can even broadcast it on YouTube. You know, or on your social media.
Sky's the limit at this point.
That really is the limit, you know, and if you really bust your ass and you put the work in, it's very likely you'll get noticed if you're doing something good.
True.
Yeah.
You know, because it's out there, and that's my advice to them. My advice to everybody else at home that's not interested in pursuing any of these avenues for a career, just show up when the stuff gets made. I don't care if you like it, or don't be overly critical, because this is another problem. We tend to be overly critical of ourselves, you know, and I have this problem. I watch my own work and I can pick it apart, you know, and I could have my wife or whoever there going like, oh, you just go easy on yourself. You're too critical. Like, but that's just, you know, and we tend to do that as a culture. We tend to do that for ourselves. You know?
We tend to do that to each other as well,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
But again, as you were saying, it's all about showing up. It's all about supporting, especially projects like Penny Dreadful. I mean, so incredible. And I really want to get into this with you because you have done an incredible job just watching your work and how you represented. I mean, let's look at your character. Los Angeles, this is like in the 1930s, right? Your character is Raul. He is this passionate Latinx community member, and he is passionate about what he believes. So how did you prepare for this role? Obviously, you're not living in LA in the 1930s, and, you know, I mean,
No.
that is not who you are personally, but how did you represent it in such an authentic way? Like, how did you prepare for it? Reading the script, did you talk to anybody? Did you have to come to LA? Like, what exactly did you do to prepare for that?
Yeah, I mean, all of those things. I mean, you know, I've been living in LA now for 23 years. I've been in LA. I mean,
You're an Angelino then at this
I'm
point.
an Angelino now.
Yeah, you're adopted. You know? Yeah, you're not even an implant anymore. You're
it's
here.
crazy. I've actually, this was the year, oh no, I guess 2 years ago. I lived in LA longer than I lived in New York. But I mean, I would say the first probably 5-6 years I lived out here was back and forth a lot. But I've been in LA for a long time. So I knew the city very well. I knew some of the history. I certainly knew the geography really well. I know the city inside out. And so that was helpful in terms of understanding where, you know, some of the story was some of the things the story was addressing. In terms of the freeways and all of those things, and, you know, the areas that have changed names over time, but that we were dealing with in the first part of the story. So in terms of research, I mean, I will say this. Look, this is one of those pieces. When I read this script for the first time, I absolutely fell in love with the story. I fell in love with the characters, all of them, but most especially, you know, Raul, with my character. I really fell in love with this character. I felt like he had something to say that really resonated with me. He represented in all of the ways that I wanted to be able to represent, and still left room for me to walk in and bring all of what I was going to bring to it. You know, it wasn't John Logan, who's the creator of the show, is an absolutely brilliant writer and a wonderful human being, which I think lends itself to him being the kind of writer that he is. And he just really knows how to give these characters enough shape that you know who they are, and still yet enough room for you to go in and fill them out with everything that you're going to come to the table with. And I tell you, I'd never had a character come my way that I felt as strongly about as I did Raul. I mean, not even close. And so I really did. I've set off doing the work on the history of LA, of the unions and the strikes that were going on at that time. Huge, you know, a huge portion of that history, actually, there were women in a seamstress factory that organized one of the first big strikes that really helped establish unions, unions here in Los Angeles. And there's just a really rich history about it. I did that. I read a few John Steinbeck books because he wrote some books that really dealt with union organizers, something called In Dubious Battle, and another book called Cannery Row, which is actually where Raul works, is at a cannery. And those books really helped me get some insight and into mindset, into the practices that were going on, into the kinds of, the kind of work that it took and the kind of character that it took from somebody to really battle for a union. It was you see it in the episode. I mean, it's every bit as much mental as it was physical. You were fighting political battles, and you were fighting literally with your fists to essentially fight for what was fair, for what you felt was right, for people's treatment to be equitable and human-like, you know. I mean, at that time we were coming out of the industrial era, and people were essentially just considered machines, you know, like, put them in the fact that kids worked in the factories. They had to do child labor laws for these reasons. Like, you know, people that had these big companies were just like, hey, whatever, the bodies, get them in there, put them to work. And I don't care how you treat them. I need to get this done. And so these people really were on the forefront of helping to create what became the middle class in America. And, you know, all of that was really exciting to me. And you talk about in terms of going back to 1938, what was really striking to me when I read the script was that outside of the history and the amount of years that there's a difference, I felt compelled to tell this story because I felt like here we are 92 years later and not that much has changed.
True. Oh my God. Absolutely.
We're still fighting the same battles. We're still fighting to see each other as human beings, to see each other as American citizens with a right to be here in America, with a right to be an American. You
tell them.
All of that. You know, there's all of that. And look, you know, we have to stand up and claim that as well, you know, and this is, you know, again, not to get on a preachy thing, but like,
get on it, please.
I think one of the things we do that holds us back as well is we identify so strongly with whatever our parent country is that it ends up being divisive amongst us. It also ends up being harder for the general market to appeal to us as a whole because they're like, well, the Mexicans like this, and then, you know, on the East Coast it's that, or, you know, South Americans here. And, you know, I think it really pays for us, especially, and I think this is happening now with the Latinx generation. I think we're waking up to it, you know, with some sense of cognition, but I also think that just naturally we are understanding that we need to be unified. The generation, we're moving farther away from, you know, that first, you know, the new immigrant generation. And I think that the Latinx generation is identifying as Latin, of course, but unified Latin, you know, like somos uno, like we're all one. And, you know,
I think that's definitely like the tú eres esto, yo soy esto, tú eres Puerto Rican, tú eres cubano, tú eres mexicano, and well, the formula of this family and the vision of it is relatable, and it's just like the depiction of like the union of all these elements. It just makes perfect sense, and the representation just crosses boundaries. How do you feel that it's so relevant with today's, like with families looking at it? You can be from wherever and identify with it.
Yes. You know, look, I think the common thread, and I think John gets this, is why I was saying, you know, just as a human being, and it's infused in the way he's written these, you know, these stories amongst the family, especially. The Vega family is the heart of this show. And the root with anything good, it's love, you know, these people love each other. They're going through their shit, and they can go back and forth with each other and fight and bicker and hate what the other person is doing. I mean, look, I'm a community leader, a union leader, community organizer, and my younger brother decides to go be a cop, to go be the man. You know, I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah, but when your little brother comes talk to it, it's like, he's your brother.
And that's why you took that shot and you still were like, you know what, cheers to you. You still put away that conflict to the side. And actually, I think that's so prevalent in Latin families. Don't you feel like we put family before anything? We will punch each other. We will call each other every name in the book. But if you call it about my brother to me, we're going to have problems.
True. It's so true. I mean, you know, and I love that too. I mean, and I will say my family was like that. I mean, growing up, even extended family, it didn't matter what kind of person you were. You could have, you know, regardless of what life you were living, you were always welcomed at the table. You were family, you know, and you knew that at the root of everything, there was that love, you know, and I think we do represent that. I think the Vega family represents that. And I think people can identify with that. I think that, you know, I think we also represent all of the avenues that are presented to us as a first generation immigrant in any country. You're figuring it out, right? I'm the oldest brother. I'm a laborer, you know, I'm working in a factory. I'm a machine, right? But I'm trying to be better because Raul, to me, and I discussed this with John early on, was, you know, this guy really wanted to be a lawyer. But that's not a possibility. In 1938, the access to that kind of education, the money that it would have taken to get that kind of education, and even the dream, the possibility of being that was not a reality, most likely. You know, same way being an actor didn't seem real to me. I'm sure in 1938, being an attorney didn't seem real to Raul, but that's what he should have been, an attorney, a politician, somebody who really was going to, you know, but instead he's making the most with what he's got. He's got a family to take care of that he loves. He goes to work every day in a job that he probably hates, but even there, he wants to lead. He wants to he wants to make people better. You know, he wants to fight for people's rights, for people to be treated the way they're supposed to be treated. And all of the kids have that same quality. You know, if you notice, that's the through line through the whole family. And I think when you're loved a certain way growing up, you know, and I know not everybody gets dealt this hand, but when you're loved a certain way growing up, I think that you have a very natural instinct to want to fight for other people to feel that same love. You know what a good feeling that is. You know, and if you've been loved the right way, you want other people to feel that same thing. And you naturally, I think, become a crusader for that in some way. And I think that's the root of who Raul is. And it was so important for me to get a chance to portray a character like that, that was not necessarily serving some other character in the story. You know, Raul's very much his own man. He's not a sidekick. He's not, you know, one of many in the story. He's a very unique and important character to the story. And I've been waiting my entire career to get a character, to get my hands on somebody that I could bring everything I had inside of me to that character. And, you know, John Logan and Michael Aguilar, they gave me that opportunity. So I'm great. And
really highlighting this unspoken heroes, because I don't think there's ever been a show or anything talking about this kind of stories about like Latinos in the 1930s and the struggles. And it's the first time that I can think of that it's ever been tapped on. So
absolutely. And to your point, representing different sides. I mean, you have you who's fighting for your rights as a worker, and then you have your brother who también bien orgullosamente, you know, Mexicano, Latino, but showcasing that other side, maybe working for the different team, but same intention. I think that's so beautiful.
Same intention, exactly. You know, and then our little brother goes the other way because he's that age where that passion takes him in that direction, but he still wants to be a stand-up guy, you know?
Beautiful.
All of it. All of those characters were so beautifully crafted, with dignity, with intelligence, with a sense of purpose and a moral compass that can be respected, you know, so that even when they do wrong things, you see them as a whole. You see them for who they are. You know, they feel like family. You know, you still want to welcome them at the dinner table, regardless of the things that they do. You know, you still want to welcome them home.
And I want to add on to what you were saying about, like, you know, being, you know, tú eres esto, yo soy esto, and all of that. It happens that I was a huge fan of the first round of the series, you know, where it was like the Penny Dreadful in London. And now this adaptation of where it is in Los Angeles in the 1930s. And it's the fact that it's a fantastic story. The characters happen to be Latinos.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
And you nailed it when you said it's all around the love between this family and this and that unites them. And love is just international and universal. It knows no barriers, and it unites them beautifully.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
it's a great story.
You know, just to tag onto that, like, we haven't seen a family like that I can recall on TV. And most certainly we have not, I know this for sure, we have not seen a family like that in this high a level of production. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
and it's amazing. It's happening.
They spent on this show, you know, I would no less than $80 million. You know, it was a huge budget for this show. They really put all of the, you know, Showtime really got behind it. They really believed in it. And, you know, I'm so happy that they decided to believe in it for whatever reasons they did. John Logan, you know, Natalie Dormer, Nathan Lane, all of the elements that, you know, that warranted them spending this kind of money. But this is also giving us a chance to see ourselves at a level of quality that we don't often get a chance to see. You know what I mean? This is not on some other network where, you know, the production looks like it's good, but you could tell it's not quite right, you know, and the characters are, you know, they're good, but they're sort of broad and general. I mean, these people are nuanced. They're human beings. There's nobody that shouldn't be able to identify with these characters. And the fact that they're Latin should just be, you know, no different than whatever clothes they're wearing. It's just
Absolutely.
part of the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
No, and seriously, we're so happy to be able to, you know, talk to you, because this is such a project that means so much for so many people, not even just Latinos, Angelinos. I mean, everything. You, I think, are truly making a difference even now. Yes. Because these problems are still happening. Sure. So we appreciate you giving your insight on kind of like the behind the scenes. And just as one last question, obviously these times are really tough during quarantine. What advice do you give for all the families being really impacted by COVID-19? And we would love to get, you know, whatever words of advice or encouragement.
No, absolutely. I just want to touch on something you just said though, Angelinos. I mean, this is really, this story and what you're seeing in the Pachuco era was like, that was the beginning of the culture we know now. You know, these people were in their day, they were the kids that, you know, emerged from, you know, they were the equivalent of my generation, which was all hip hop, you know, and like that becoming the new thing. This was, you know, the Pachuco era was equivalent to that, what's now car culture and, you know, everything that's, you know, that this is where it spawned from, you know, this was the beginning of that. And so I think it's cool for people to check it out and to see like, oh, wow, these are the roots. This is what my grandparents, my great grandparents thought was cool. And this is now passed through over time and evolved into whatever it is now for the youth. So what I would say to families right now dealing with this time, I would say, first, please try to accept, you know, and I know this is hard. We can't control what's happening in the world. So let go of the idea that you could do anything different. You know, forgive yourself for whatever feelings you have about not delivering for your family in this moment, because it's not your fault.
Yes.
Now, it not being your fault also doesn't mean you can't do anything about it, because these are also the times when you need to become crafty, when you need to not look at the downside of the situation and get stuck in the woe is me and damn, I'm this, and I, you know, if I could beat the the but phase, like, but, you know, I'm stuck home, but I'm this, but I'm that. Yeah, but nothing. All right. You gotta look for the opportunity right now, because there is an opportunity, you know, on so many levels, especially for the kids graduating high school and people in, you know, that were looking forward to maybe going to college next year or starting their first job or internship or, you know, whatever new phase of life they were excited about jumping into. I know that this is tough, you know, and it's really your first lesson as an adult, because if you're old enough to be affected by this, you're on your way to adulthood, you know, in the sense that you're feeling something behind this in that way. And this is the time to start developing the habits that are going to get you through the rest of your life. And so if you get stuck on this, you're probably going to stay stuck in a lot of ways in your life. You have an opportunity here to shake this off, you know. I mean, obviously embrace the pain, accept it, you know, you have to acknowledge it, but shake it off and start moving forward and find the opportunity, because the opportunities are out there. And you're going to see times of crisis, when there's craziness going on, if you're the person that knows how to keep a level head, you will always find the opportunity.
You're absolutely right, Adam. And it's so powerful to like be able to control what you can actually really control and take advantage of the opportunity, but also don't be so hard on yourself. And I just want to say that it's been an incredible pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, for taking the time to speak to us today. As I said, huge fan of the show, and really can't wait to see what else is going to come from the show and from you, obviously.
Yeah, you never stop bringing on the surprises, seriously. Your insight has been amazing, your wisdom, your words. And I know so many people are going to watch this and take exactly what you said and really implement that in their lives. And that's life-changing. So thank you so much for that, seriously.
So.
And you have to come see us again.
Yes, for sure. No doubt. Definitely.
Yes, please. If we had more time, we could go on and on. Trust me.
Yeah, no, this was easy. It was great talking to you guys. I really enjoyed it.
You're amazing. Thank you so
for
much.
coming. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
Take care of yourselves, all right?
Thank you.
Bye now.